Good evening, Bahamas. Coming up tonight, 6 people killed in a plane crash in Andros. The AG lays out the Minutes administration's plans to address immigration and marital rape.
Our news is brought to you by Alive, the nation's newest and best LTE network.
Good to be alive.
Welcome to our news and thanks for joining us. I'm Kyle Joachim. Topping news tonight, 6 people, including a young girl, were killed in a plane crash shortly after takeoff from the airport at San Andros this morning. Authorities say the plane took off shortly after 8. However, there was no confirmation of the crash until hours later. The husband of one of the victims, who was a mother of 2, says residents of Andros are in a state of shock. Jared Higgs has the details.
A plane that is believed to have crashed off of Andros has not been found as yet, but according to the general manager of Bahamas Air Navigation Services, Mr. Keith Major, a discovery has been made. Authorities tell our news that the Nassau-bound plane carrying 6 people took off from the airport at San Andros shortly after 8 a.m., but was forced to turn around when it started going in circles. That's when authorities say it crashed, killing everyone on board. Up to 5 p.m., the Coast Guard has recovered at least 2 bodies. According to Mangrove Key Administrator Glenn Lightbourne, we're told the plane crashed near Mastic Point.
We received information from Basra representative Mr. Chris Lloyd that he had received information from the U.S. Coast Guard that they have discovered one body in the vicinity of San Andros Airport, just east of Andros actually. One body face down, not yet identified. They have not located the aircraft, but the aircraft is believed to be the aircraft in question. But the debris field suggests that there was severe impact in the area.
Now, we also spoke to the Member of Parliament for North Andros and the Berry Islands, Carlton Bowleg. He told us that he's related to many of those people who are on board.
Everyone on board that plane is considered to be my family, but my son has his uncle that is on that flight, that was on that flight. If you want to ask me if I know everyone on board, I grew up around there. I am in close-knit with that community and the constituency, and yes, everyone on board that plane I knew.
What has been the response of the family members who you've spoken to so far? Nothing more than what I expect. It's sad. It's a sad day for the whole constituency. You have an island that is very large, maybe the largest island in this country, but it's very close-knitted. And anytime you have a tragedy, when it hits one family, it hits everyone. And right now, I can tell you, everyone is distraught on that island. Our news spoke with Kermit Adderley, whose wife, 49-year-old Margaret Melrose Adderley, was among those on the ill-fated flight. He says the mother of 2 was headed to New Providence to meet their new grandchild who was born on Monday. Adderley described his wife as caring and a loving person. We understand another victim is Carter Campbell. We spoke with his sister, Nakisha Campbell, who described him as a loving person. 35-year-old carpenter Valentino Knowles, the father of a boy and a girl, was also among those on the flight. His devastated sister, Laura Lee Knowles, says he was traveling to New Providence to return to Freeport where he lived. Tearful relatives had all held out hope that their loved ones would be found alive. They said rumors were circulating all day about the crash, and they didn't find out the tragic truth until this afternoon. Director of the Department of Civil Aviation, Captain Charles Benaby, says that their next step is to send the team over to evaluate what exactly went wrong.
In the circumstances such as this, we will dispatch a team from our Safety Oversight Department who will work closely in conjunction with the Air Accident Investigation Department. Once it is confirmed that the aircraft has been found, a team will be dispatched most likely tomorrow morning, first thing tomorrow morning, to conduct their investigations with a view towards establishing exactly what caused the event and what were the contributing factors.
Reporting for our news, I'm Jared Higgs.
Although very little has been said here at home about where the Minutes administration stands on the controversial issue of marital rape and calls to criminalize it, Attorney General Carl Bethel delivering a more detailed presentation to the United Nations Human Rights Commission in Geneva, Switzerland this morning. Bethel revealed abroad that marital rape would be criminalized as aggravated spousal sexual abuse.
Marital rape in the context of a subsisting marriage will now be criminalized as aggravated spousal sexual abuse.
Amid growing calls for the Minnis administration to make marital rape a criminal offense, the Attorney General revealed during the United Nations session of Universal Periodic Review in Geneva that marital rape will in fact be criminalized, but as aggravated spousal abuse. The announcement comes weeks after Bethel revealed that his office planned to draft amendments to the Sexual Offenses Act.
The new clause provides that a complaint under this section must be made within 1 year after the cause of the complaint arose. The clause further provides that a defendant's spouse will not be prosecuted without the consent of the Attorney General. It should be noted, though, that although the proposed offense is not labeled as marital rape, it still has all of the elements of the offense of rape in marriage.
Debate on marital rape was reignited last year when a United Nations Special Rapporteur reported that the Bahamas is out of step with the UN's conventions when it comes to marital rape. Though Bethel initially said it was not on the Minnis administration's agenda, passionate debate on the matter forced the government to take a second look, with the AG subsequently announcing that his office planned to draft amendments to the Sexual Offenses Act to address marital rape and other issues. The last Ingram administration tabled a marital rape bill in Parliament in 2009, but buckled under the pressure applied by some sectors of the religious community. Bethel says he believes public opinion on the matter has changed since then.
Consultation with civil society indicated that popular public opinion was strongly against the bill, and the same was subsequently withdrawn. However, the government is now pleased to report that we have drafted an amendment to the Sexual Offences Act, which provides for the offense of aggravated spousal sexual abuse.
Bethel's 50-minute presentation also touched on another sensitive subject, the treatment of the LGBT community in the Bahamas.
Mr. President, persons who are in same-sex relationships are able to avail themselves of the regular protection and remedies available under the law in respect of violence or assaults on property rights.
He pointed out that the Bahamas is a Christian nation with the belief that marriage is between a man and a woman. However, Bethel noted that members of the LGBT community are protected by the law just like everyone else, and when it comes to violence, there have been no reports of attacks or discrimination against members of that community in the country.
The government continues to assert that there have not been any instances recorded of any legal discrimination against persons based on sexual orientation or gender identity. Mr. President, neither has there been any formal reports lodged of discrimination on the basis of sexual orientation to the Royal Bahamas Police Force, the Bahamas Labor Board, the Bahamas Ministry of Education and the Ministry of Health, and there are no cases before the judiciary.
Well, despite Bethel's assertion to the UN that the draft bill has been circulated to religious leaders and civil society advocates whom he said were supportive of the proposed amendments, President of the Bahamas Christian Council, Bishop Delton Fernando, told our news this afternoon that he has not received that draft legislation. Meanwhile, the government intends to amend the Immigration Act to impose stiffer penalties for persons who harbor or employ illegal migrants and will take steps to protect undocumented migrants, according to the Attorney General. Bethel also announced plans to station a magistrate at the Carmichael Road Detention Center,
which will, on the one hand, increase penalties for persons who harbor or employ undocumented workers, but which, on the other hand, will also provide clear legal remedies to the undocumented migrant by limiting the time frames in which they may be administratively detained by an immigration officer pending deportation, requiring judicial oversight thereafter, and mandating that upon any claim to some constitutional entitlement, the matter must be referred forthwith to a magistrate who we plan to station at the center, who shall, if it is shown that there is a case which could be made, must refer the matter to a Supreme Court judge.
Last year, the Prime Minister warned that illegal migrants living in the Bahamas would be aggressively pursued and deported after government's December 31st deadline. However, little has changed since that date. Bethel says government is also seeking to address the issue of statelessness in the Bahamas.
The government plans to introduce an independent review committee chaired by a retired Chief Justice to review all pending applications for citizenship in an effort to clear the enormous backlog that currently exists, allowing those applicants who qualify for citizenship to receive and enjoy the citizenship promised by the Constitution. The committee will make recommendations in all cases to the Immigration Board and the Minister, which recommendations will ordinarily be followed unless there are compelling reasons of national security or public safety.
Well, less than 24 hours after Assistant Commissioner of Police Emerick Seymour asserted that the Royal Bahamas Police Force is able to police itself when it comes to complaints against officers, Attorney General Carl Bethel told the United Nations Commission on Human Rights otherwise. There were nearly 200 complaints filed against officers of the Royal Bahamas Police Force in 2017. 19 were centered on conduct of a major nature, 173 unethical behavior cases, and 5 allegations of neglect of duty. Bethel today stressed the importance of having an independent body to oversee and review complaints as a part of government's anti-corruption move.
The government acknowledges that there are deficiencies in the complaints and corruption branch of the police due to a lack of independent oversight. Therefore, the Bahamas is currently reviewing the branch as part of its reform agenda on anti-corruption. It is also important to note that members of the police force are subject to the jurisdiction of both the civil and the criminal courts.
The Bahamas recorded an average of 1 murder every 3 days in 2017. The number has steadily climbed in the last 2 years, with murders increasing by 10% last year after 122 people were killed. That and much more was revealed in the 2017 police crime statistics. Jasmine Brown reports.
According to the murder demographics, based on the 122 killings, a person was most likely to be killed in the latter part of the day on a weekend on the streets of New Providence. When it comes to the most likely locations, 15% of last year's murders took place in northeastern New Providence. Another 14% occurred in central, southern, and southwestern New Providence, while 11% of murders occurred in south central New Providence. The statistics also show that 74 of last year's murders occurred on the street, 23 in residences, and 11 in yards. Furthermore, 58 of the killings took place between 4 p.m. and midnight, 31 occurred between 8 a.m. and 4 p.m., and 33 took place between midnight and 8 a.m. As for the most prevalent days for murders, Saturday accounted for 20%, Monday and Friday accounted for 16% respectively. The deadliest month was February. That month, 18 murders were recorded. Assistant Commissioner of Police Clayton Fernander admits the number is appalling.
As a country, we cannot sit back and see another month with 15 and 20 murders. We can't sit back as a country. I repeat, we can't sit back as a country and sit and watch another month with 15 and 20 murders.
Fernander adds that when it came to the motive behind those murders, there were consistent trends.
We note that there were a lot of gang activities, conflicts as a result of drug turf, and retaliation.
As for last year's detection rate, that stands at 56%, with only 68 of the 122 murders solved. Still, Fernander says there was headway made, especially in the last quarter of 2017, when the pace of murders slowed considerably.
This significant decrease can be attributed to the excellent communication with members of the public. The formation, as mentioned by our commissioner, of the Anti-Gang and Firearms Unit, Flying Squad, Rapid Response Unit, along with all of the operational uniform units who consistently, on a daily basis, consistently target criminal gangs in accordance with the anti-gang laws.
Reporting for our News, I'm Jasmine Brown.
Still to come on our news, efforts underway to clean up over-the-hill communities. The details are after this break.